Welcome to Newsreel Anaconda. I'm Specialist Tony Knuff. In our first story, the new face of logistics puts boots on ground in Iraq. Specialist Brian Toll takes us to the transfer of authority from the 3rd COSCOM to the 13th Sustainment Command.
As the 3rd Corps Support Command, the last COSCOM to see combat redeploys, the Army closes a chapter in its long history. The new face of supply, the 13th Sustainment Command Expeditionary, puts boots on ground in Iraq, ready to seize the torch and continue the fight. Lieutenant General Peter Corelli talks about the importance of logistics.
The commander who fails to provide his Army with the necessary food and supplies is making arrangements for his own defeat.
The 13th SCE Commander, Brigadier General Michael Terry, congratulates the 3rd COSCOM on a job well done.
The soldiers and leaders of the 3rd COSCOM have left us a pretty well-stacked woodpile. The 3rd COSCOM has established a reputation for excellence that will be tough to sustain, but I promise you, we will.
As the 13th SCE uncases its colors and assumes command, the eyes of the Army look to see what a sustainment command can do in a combat zone. General Terry promises continued logistic support.
On behalf of the soldiers of the 13th, I make this promise. We will continue to sustain the line. Thank you all again for sharing this special day with us. May God bless each of you. May God bless the soldiers of the 3rd COSCOM as they return home following a job well done. And may God bless the soldiers of the 13th Sustainment Command Expeditionary as we embark on this mission. Phantom support.
For the 210th MPAD, I'm Specialist Brian Toll.
A Nebraska unit overcomes loss through hard work and diverse assignments. We take a look at what they've done in Camp Adder to complete their mission. For the 189th Transportation Company, they've been rolling in and out of Camp Adder, Iraq for almost a year. Now this Nebraska National Guard unit is getting ready to go back home. They've delivered all classes of supplies and trained the Iraqi Army to conduct missions by themselves. Their mission has been diverse, challenging, and includes a MIT team, or Military Integrated Transitional Training Team. Captain Darren Hoos tells us some of what his unit has accomplished.
They've worked a lot of humanitarian missions around the New Medina base. With their contacts and some of the things they were able to do was to help build a school for one of the local populaces. They helped build an energy plant, a water treatment plant, a civic center.
But what the 189th has given has come at a higher price than simply hard work. On July 31st, 2006, they lost one soldier and had another soldier injured by an improvised explosive device. Sergeant Brian Furno was the lead gun truck on that mission.
And I don't think we would have done anything different. I think any person in the unit would have had that happen to them. Everybody would have responded the same way, which is, that's what makes our unit what it is.
The soldiers carried on their mission as a tribute to their fallen friend.
Each one of them had their own greeting period, but within 4 or 5 days, the soldiers were back out. They knew that's what Sergeant Ford would want.
The 189th completed many successful missions, and they are waiting for one road trip in particular. After a job well done and a collective 3 million miles later, most of these soldiers will return to farming and truck driving in the state of Nebraska. For the 210th MPAD, I'm Specialist Tony Knuff. If coalition forces cause an Iraqi to suffer property loss, LSA Anaconda is the place to go for reimbursement. Sergeant Mark McNabb takes us inside the Civil Military Operations Center.
Part of Operation Iraqi Freedom is being won in a plain little building on the edge of LSA Anaconda. Here, the Army is demonstrating another kind of justice with locals that suffer loss due to the war on terror. Iraqis can go to the Civil Military Operations Center, or CMOC for short, to file their claims. Captain Stamboni faces the bureaucracy involved in claim settlement.
You're constantly interacting with JAG, with finance, with numerous S2 and military intelligence organizations, both here on base and off base. You're working with the U.S. embassies. You're working with local Iraqi national organizations. You're working sometimes with nonprofit organizations, You're working with the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, or the Ministry of Finance.
Determining the value of crops and farmland, verifying land ownership, and the Blue Book worth of used vehicles is a full-time job for the Civil Affairs Office of the 13th Sustainment Command Expeditionary. The necessary information is easily accessible if a person knows where to look. Specialist Reese does much of the background research.
It's also pretty interesting because it's kind of like detective work, which is also one of the reasons why I joined the Army, because I was really interested in FBI. So it's mainly like detective work where you got to investigate, did this really happen, how much money we should have to pay these people.
No one enjoys having their property damaged or destroyed, but if Iraqis suffer a loss due to a coalition action, they can know their claim will be decided in an impartial process. For the 210th MPAD, I'm Army Sergeant Mark McNabb.
Historic roots of major religions can be traced back to an ancient temple near Tallil. During this season of Ramadan, we'll give you a little cultural awareness. This is the ziggurat of Ur, a 4,000-year-old religious symbol built by King Ur-Nammu. Once the richest city in Mesopotamia, Ur was found abandoned by Alexander the Great in 331 BC. The biblical Tower of Babel, referred to in Genesis 10, is believed to have its roots in the construction of a ziggurat. For 3 generations, Daif Moshen's family has been showing people around the ziggurat of Ur.
All ziggurats in that time for worship, temples. This building also in that time, temple of the moon god.
Modern Muslims pray to the direction of Mecca, built as a shrine to the moon god. Evidence of the moon god can be seen as crescent moons on the flags of Islamic nations. The ancient Arabs honored the holy period of fasting during the month that begins and ends with a crescent moon. Today, Muslims call this period Ramadan. Why visit the ziggurat? Staff Sergeant Thomas Murray, Chaplain Assistant for the 1st and the 34th Minnesota National Guard, stands under the world's oldest known arch and tells us why.
In order for us to help the people of Iraq, in order for us to understand the people of Iraq, there is a need to understand some of their culture, see what some of their heritage is.
The Pope once refused to visit the ziggurat because Saddam Hussein would not guarantee his safety.
Maybe the new Pope came. So if the Pope came here, I thought this is a good thing because this is encourage the tourists to come because the Pope famous man, and this is all the televisions in all the countries, they know that the Pope came to here, and maybe this is a good way to encourage the tourism in Iraq.
Ur remains 80% unexcavated, although many objects have been found. Who knows what else the ziggurat can tell us? For the 210th MPAD, I'm Specialist Tony Knuff. A few soldiers have the opportunity to help Iraqis in a direct way. Specialist Brian Toll rode with the Dragon Slayers on a school supply mission.
Soldiers from the 345th Military Intelligence Battalion took a break from their normal job to deliver school supplies to the village of Bani Saad.
Simple notebooks, pens, crayons, colored pencils. Fortunately, we were able to bring some soccer balls that we have quite a bit in the United States, but they don't have here, so they appreciate everything we brought, and that gives us that really internal satisfaction that we can provide these kind of supplies to people that it's so hard to get on a normal basis.
The Task Force Dragon Slayer soldiers donated the books, pens, and pencils to the local tribal leader, Sheikh Al-Ruz Salam. The Sheikh saw the need for the school and allowed the new school to be built on his land, literally in his front yard. The Iraqi children waited in line to receive a bag of school supplies donated from Operation Iraqi Children and a few philanthropies from Lieutenant Colonel Hale's hometown in Tennessee.
I've never seen such energy with kids getting basic school supplies that a lot of times we take for granted in the United States, that they've all very excited about getting these supplies. So I appreciate all the organizations that have donated Operation Iraqi Children, also the Hampton County Women's Club, the Pachyderm Club, and the churches that have donated supplies that we've been able and blessed to be able to bring to this location.
Soldiers visited each classroom and the Sheikh's house before returning to LSA Anaconda. Sheikh Salam offered chai tea to the Dragon Slayers and discussed future projects to help his village. For the 210th MPAD, I'm Specialist Brian Toll.
Soldiers from New York, now serving in Iraq, reflect on their unique experiences of September 11th, 2001. We go to Q West for the story. We all remember September 11th, 2001, but Army Reserve soldiers in Key West, Iraq with the 773rd Transportation Company out of New York remember it differently than most. Captain Thomas Sullivan lost many friends on that day. Where was he? On the 95th floor of the South Tower, making the announcement that his wife was expecting twins.
They didn't feel the building coming down on them, although we did feel a slight burst of warm air and some debris.
When the first plane struck, Captain Sullivan started evacuating the floor. Had he waited just a few more minutes to leave the South Tower, the second plane that struck the 91st floor might have trapped him on the 95th floor above. Others from the 773rd were in New York that day. First Sergeant Vincent Mannion has deployed many times over the last 23 years.
The Army Reserve has prepared me, the training we receive throughout the year. I can bring something to the table for the younger soldiers. So that has prepared me, the military has prepared me. And 9/11, nothing like 9/11 will ever prepare you for anything, really.
Firefighter Sergeant Michael Kentner also helped during the attacks.
I have 3 children. I have 16 children on the Levittown Shamrock soccer team that I coach, and for their future, I wanted to do what I could to purge the craziness that would lead to something like September 11th.
In more ways than one, Captain Sullivan suffered the loss of friends. A close friend died in the attack, leaving his other friend as a widow.
Her life must go on. She had 3 kids to raise, one of which she never met. And I feel guilty. I'm sure she'd love to hear from me every now and then, but I'm also a painful reminder of that day.
The soldiers in Key West showed their respect with a solemn ceremony. They are here to remember the past, here to free an Iraqi people in the present, and here to make sure September 11th is never again part of America's future. For the 210th MPAD, I'm Specialist Tony Knuff. That's a wrap for this newsreel. We'll see you next time.